The calm before the storm. In the vast expanse of space, where silence reigned supreme, a sleek black vessel glided through the void, its hull absorbing light like a shadow. This was the ISS Phantom, Earth's most advanced stealth ship, equipped with technology that had been kept secret for decades. Inside, Lieutenant Commander Charles Phillips stood at the helm, his eyes scanning the starry expanse ahead. The crew was a mix of seasoned veterans and bright-eyed newcomers, each chosen for their unique skills. They were humanity's elite, trained not just to fight, but to think creatively under pressure. As Phillips addressed his team, he felt a surge of pride mixed with apprehension. "Listen up," he called out, his voice steady yet commanding. "We're not just here to gather intel. We're here to show those Fangi that they've underestimated us." The Fangi were an alien race known for their brutal tactics and advanced weaponry. They had been expanding their territory for years, leaving destruction in their wake. Rumors had circulated about a new weapon they were constructing, one capable of obliterating entire planets. Earth was next on their list. Phillips turned to his second-in-command, Lieutenant Sarah Kim, who was busy calibrating their advanced scanning equipment. "What's our status?" he asked. "Scanners are operational, Commander," she replied without looking up. "We're approaching the Fangi outpost now. It's heavily fortified, but we've got a plan." The team had spent months preparing for this moment, studying every scrap of intelligence they could gather on the Fangi's operations. Their mission was twofold: gather data on the new weapon and sabotage its construction if possible. Failure was not an option. If they were discovered, Earth would disavow any knowledge of their existence. As they neared the outpost, Phillips felt a knot tighten in his stomach. The stakes were high. One misstep could lead to disaster. But he also knew that humanity had faced impossible odds before and emerged victorious through sheer determination and innovation. "Prepare for descent," he ordered as they entered the outer perimeter of the Fangi base. The ship's stealth systems engaged fully, rendering them nearly invisible to enemy sensors. With a soft hum, the Phantom descended toward a crater on an asteroid just outside the outpost's defenses. As they landed silently, Phillips gathered his team for one last briefing before stepping into potential danger. "Remember," he said, locking eyes with each member of his team, "we are not just fighting for ourselves. We are fighting for every person back home." He paused for effect, letting his words sink in. "Let's show these aliens what humanity is capable of." The air was thick with tension as they prepared to disembark. Each soldier checked their gear one last time. Mag boots secured, low-light visors activated, suppressed rifles ready for action. They moved like shadows themselves as they exited the ship into the dim light of the asteroid surface. "Stay sharp," Phillips whispered into his comms as they split into two teams, Alpha and Bravo, each with specific objectives. Alpha would create distractions while Bravo infiltrated command to gather intel on the weapon. Navigating through tight service ducts beneath the surface of the outpost felt claustrophobic but necessary. They emerged into a maintenance corridor where Phillips took point. Suddenly, a Fangi guard rounded a corner ahead. Without hesitation, Phillips raised his rifle and squeezed off 3 silent shots. The guard crumpled without a sound. Adrenaline surged through him as he signaled for his team to move forward quickly, but quietly. As they advanced deeper into enemy territory, Phillips couldn't shake off an unsettling feeling that lingered at the back of his mind. A sense that something was off about this mission. "Keep moving," he urged as they pressed onward through darkened corridors, filled with ominous machinery and blinking lights. They reached a set of blast doors leading into what appeared to be command central for operations within this outpost. Phillips placed a breaching charge on the door seam and activated it with precision. The charge detonated with a muffled thud, sending metal fragments flying as they rushed inside. Phillips immediately located a terminal humming with activity and plugged in an AI hacking module designed to breach Fangi firewalls. Data streamed across his HUD, weapon specs, deployment plans, But before he could fully process it all, an alarm blared throughout the facility. Damn it! He cursed under his breath as red lights flashed ominously around them. A Fangi had detected their intrusion and retaliated with countermeasures aimed at infecting their systems. Phillips yanked out his connection just in time. Sweat trickled down his brow as he realized how close they had come to being compromised. Alpha Team. He barked into comms urgently as chaos erupted around them. We're made. Blow your charges now. The dull thumps of explosions echoed through the corridors as Alpha Team initiated their distraction protocol, just as Phillips' heart raced at what lay ahead. The real challenge had only just begun. As smoke filled the air and alarms blared louder than ever before, Phillips grinned fiercely despite himself. This was what they had trained for. The moment when humanity would rise from obscurity to confront its enemies head-on. Let's show them how primitive humans really are, he shouted as Bravo Team sprang into action amidst chaos, ready to turn this fight into a testament of human ingenuity and resilience against all odds. Infiltration. As the chaos erupted in the command center, Lieutenant Commander Charles Phillips and his team sprang into action. The alarms blared, red lights flickered ominously, and the metallic scent of tension hung thick in the air. They had only moments to act before the Fangi forces would be upon them. Rushing forward. Bravo Team, move! Phillips shouted, his voice cutting through the cacophony. He led the way, adrenaline coursing through him as they navigated the narrow corridors of the Fangi outpost. The layout was complex, a labyrinth of metal and machinery designed to confuse intruders. But Phillips had studied the schematics extensively. He knew where they needed to go. The team split into pairs, each member taking up strategic positions as they advanced. The low-light visors allowed them to see clearly in the crimson glow of emergency lights, giving them an edge over their disoriented enemies. They moved with purpose, every step calculated and precise. Unexpected resistance. As they turned a corner, they encountered a group of Fangi soldiers rushing toward them. The aliens were imposing figures with gray skin and elongated limbs, their eyes glowing with an eerie light. Phillips raised his rifle and fired a series of controlled bursts. The sound was muffled but deadly. 2 Fangi soldiers dropped to the ground before they even realized what was happening. Clear. Novak called out from behind him, her voice steady despite the chaos surrounding them. Keep pushing forward, Phillips commanded, feeling a surge of confidence. They were making progress, but he knew that time was not on their side. Every second spent fighting meant less time for gathering intel on the weapon that could threaten Earth. Gathering intel. They reached another set of doors leading to a data storage room. Phillips motioned for Lee to take point while he prepared a breaching charge. We need to get in there and download everything we can about that weapon, he said, his focus unwavering. Lee placed the charge against the door's seam and activated it. The explosion was quick and efficient, sending metal shards flying as they rushed inside. The room was filled with rows of servers humming softly, illuminated by flickering lights. Get to work, Phillips instructed as he plugged in his AI hacking module. The device whirred to life, its algorithms racing against time to breach the Fangi security systems. As data streamed across his HUD, Phillips felt a mix of exhilaration and dread. Weapon specifications flashed before him, yield estimates, deployment plans, but just as he began to process the information, an alarm blared again. The Fangi counterattack. Damn it, they're onto us, Phillips cursed as he yanked out his module just in time to avoid being detected by a countermeasure from the Fangi. Alpha Team, we need those charges blown now, he barked into his comms. The response came quickly as explosions echoed through the facility once more. The sound reverberated off the walls like thunder, creating a chaotic symphony that sent Fangi soldiers scrambling in all directions. Time's up, Novak shouted as she scanned their surroundings for any incoming threats. Phillips felt a rush of urgency. They had to move fast before reinforcements arrived. Let's go. We need to regroup with Alpha Team. navigating through chaos. As they retraced their steps through the corridors, Phillips could hear the distant sounds of gunfire and explosions resonating throughout the outpost. It was a battle now, a full-scale conflict between human ingenuity and alien arrogance. They encountered more Fangi soldiers along their path. Each confrontation was swift and brutal. With every enemy they took down, Phillips felt their resolve strengthen. They were proving that humanity was not to be underestimated. "Keep moving," he urged as they reached an intersection filled with smoke and debris. "We need to find Alpha Team." Suddenly, a hail of blaster fire erupted from their left side. Phillips dove for cover behind a bulkhead as rounds ricocheted off metal surfaces around them. Suppressing fire, he shouted as he returned fire with precision, taking down 2 more Fangi soldiers who had emerged from a side corridor. Regrouping with Alpha Team. Finally, after what felt like an eternity of running and fighting, they spotted Alpha Team huddled behind a barricade near a large hangar door. "Phillips, over here," Sarah Kim called out urgently as she waved them over. "What's our status?" Phillips asked breathlessly as he joined them. "They're coming in waves," Kim replied grimly. "We've managed to hold them off for now, but we can't stay here much longer." Phillips nodded in agreement. They needed a new plan. "We have intel on their weapons location," he said quickly, "but we need to get out of here before we're overwhelmed." Planning their next move, the group huddled together as Phillips laid out their options. "We can either try to make our way back to the Phantom or find another exit through this hangar," he suggested. "I say we take our chances with the hangar," Novik chimed in. "If we can get inside one of their ships, we might be able to use it against them." Phillips considered this for a moment. It was risky but could pay off immensely if executed correctly. "All right then," he decided firmly. "Let's move quickly and quietly." They made their way toward the hangar door, which loomed large before them like a gateway to freedom or further danger. As they approached, Phillips felt a mixture of hope and dread. This could be their ticket back home or lead them deeper into enemy territory. Entering the hangar. Once inside the hangar bay, they were greeted by an array of Fangi ships, sleek vessels designed for speed and destruction. The sight was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. These were machines built for war. "Which one do we take?" Lee asked as he pointed towards several options lined up against the far wall. "That one," Phillips said decisively, gesturing toward a smaller ship that looked less fortified than its counterparts, but still appeared capable of flight. As they moved toward it, however, alarms blared once again throughout the facility, this time louder than ever before, as if announcing their presence to every Fangi soldier within range. "Move! Move!" Phillips yelled as they sprinted toward their chosen vessel, while blaster fire erupted around them once more. A race against time. With seconds ticking away like sand slipping through fingers, Phillips leaped aboard just ahead of his team while Novik took control of the ship's systems. "We've got incoming," she shouted as she frantically worked at her console while Lee manned one of the ship's weapon systems. Phillips gripped his rifle tightly. This was it, the moment where everything would either fall into place or shatter into chaos once more. As blasts rang out around them, and Fangi soldiers swarmed toward their position like angry hornets defending their nest, Phillips felt an overwhelming sense of determination wash over him. Humanity would not go quietly into that dark night. They would fight back with everything they had. "Ready or not," he muttered under his breath as Novik finally powered up engines with a roar that echoed throughout the hangar bay, a sound that heralded both escape and defiance against those who thought themselves superior. In that moment, amidst chaos and uncertainty, humanity's spirit surged forth, an indomitable force ready to reclaim its place among stars. The counterattack. The hangar bay echoed with the sounds of chaos as Lieutenant Commander Charles Phillips and his team prepared to take off in the stolen Fangi ship. The alarms blared incessantly, a cacophony that seemed to mock their every move. Phillips glanced at his team, their faces illuminated by the flickering lights, determination etched into every feature. They had come too far to back down now. Taking control of the ship. "Novak, how's that ship looking?" Phillips shouted over the din, his heart racing as he took a defensive position near the entrance. "Engines are hot. We're ready to launch," she replied, her fingers flying over the controls. "But we need to get out of here fast. They're going to send reinforcements any second." "Lee, cover our six," Phillips ordered as he moved toward the cockpit. He could see Fangi soldiers rushing into the hangar, their weapons drawn, ready to retaliate against the intruders. "On it," Lee responded, positioning himself at the rear of the ship with his rifle aimed at the entrance. A desperate escape. As Novak initiated the launch sequence, Phillips felt a surge of adrenaline. The ship's engines roared to life, and he could feel the vibrations beneath his feet. Just as they were about to lift off, a group of Fangi soldiers stormed into the hangar, blasters firing wildly. "Hold them off," Phillips yelled as he took aim and fired at the advancing aliens. His shots were precise, and 2 Fangi soldiers fell before they could reach cover. "Come on. Come on," Novak urged as she worked furiously at her controls. The ship began to rise slowly, but they were still vulnerable. "Lee, now," Phillips shouted as he ducked behind a console for cover. Lee unleashed a barrage of fire from his position, taking down another soldier just as they reached the ship. The Fangi were relentless. More poured into the hangar like a tidal wave of fury. The ship takes off. Finally, with a loud roar, Novak managed to break free from the hangar's gravitational hold. The ship shot upward, leaving behind a scene of chaos and destruction. Phillips felt a rush of relief wash over him as they broke through the atmosphere and into space. "Status report," he commanded, wiping sweat from his brow. "We're clear for now," Novak replied, her voice steady but tense. "But I'm detecting multiple Fangi ships launching from their base. They'll be on us in minutes." Phillips turned his attention to the view screen, which displayed their surroundings, the vastness of space dotted with distant stars and swirling nebulae. But looming ahead was a fleet of Fangi ships, their sleek forms glinting ominously in the starlight. Rallying his team. "All right, team," Phillips said firmly. "We've got one shot at this. We need to gather intel on that weapon before we engage them directly." "What's our plan?" Novak asked as she adjusted their course to avoid detection. "We'll use our stealth capabilities," Phillips explained. "We can slip past their defenses and get close enough to gather data on that planet killer." "But what if they detect us?" Lee interjected, concern evident in his voice. "They won't," Phillips assured him. "Not if we stick to our training and execute this flawlessly." Stealth mode activated. As they approached the enemy fleet, Phillips activated the ship's stealth mode. The hull shimmered and blended into the darkness of space, rendering them nearly invisible to enemy sensors. "Keep an eye on those scanners," he instructed Novak, while scanning their surroundings for any signs of danger. The tension in the cockpit was palpable. Every minute felt like an eternity as they navigated through enemy formations. The Fangi ships moved with precision, patrolling their territory like wolves guarding their den. "Almost there," Novak said breathlessly as they neared a massive command ship at the center of the fleet, a likely hub for coordinating operations related to the weapon. Gathering intelligence. Once within range, Phillips initiated a data probe designed to siphon information from enemy systems without alerting them. The probe shot out like a dart into the heart of the command ship's systems. "Come on. Come on," he muttered under his breath as he watched data streams flicker across his HUD. Suddenly, an alert flashed across their screens. "Intrusion detected." "What? No, they shouldn't have detected us," Novak exclaimed in disbelief. Phillips' heart raced as he realized they had underestimated Fangi technology once again. "Abort. Pull back," he ordered urgently. But it was too late. Alarms blared throughout the command ship as it activated its defenses against what it perceived as an imminent threat. The Fangi response. Within moments, swarms of smaller Fangi ships began launching from their command vessel, fighter crafts armed with blasters and missiles aimed directly at them. Braced for impact, Phillips shouted as he took control of the ship's weapon systems. Novak maneuvered sharply to evade incoming fire, while Lee manned one of the ship's turrets, returning fire against their pursuers. Blaster bolts flew past them like angry hornets. Each near miss sent adrenaline coursing through Phillips' veins. "We need to get out of here," Novak yelled as she executed evasive maneuvers that sent them spiraling away from danger. "I'm downloading what we can before we go," Phillips shouted back as he focused intently on gathering any useful data from their probe before it was too late. A narrow escape. With each passing second, more enemy ships joined the fray. It was becoming increasingly difficult for them to maintain their stealth advantage amid such chaos. Almost there, just a little longer, Phillips urged himself as he watched progress bars fill on his HUD while keeping an eye on Lee's turret fire, each shot finding its mark against pursuing fighters. Finally, just as their systems began to overload from incoming fire alerts and warnings blared relentlessly in unison, the download completed. "I got it. Let's go," Phillips shouted triumphantly as he signaled for Novak to make a hard turn toward open space. With one final burst of speed, they broke free from the clutches of danger and soared into open space, leaving behind a swarm of furious Fangi ships in pursuit, but unable to catch up due to their stealth technology kicking back into high gear once more, regrouping and planning ahead. As they entered deeper space away from immediate threats, relief washed over them like a tide receding after a storm. "Status report," Phillips asked again, once they had settled into relative safety among distant stars, where no enemy could immediately follow them without detection first. "We've got valuable intel," Novak confirmed breathlessly while checking systems one last time before allowing herself some respite. "But we need to analyze it quickly. I suspect they'll regroup soon." Phillips nodded gravely. Time was not on their side. "Let's head back toward our fleet rendezvous point and analyze what we've gathered." As they plotted their course back toward home, Phillips couldn't shake off an overwhelming sense that this was only just beginning. Humanity had shown its strength today, but there would be more battles ahead. And this time, there would be no underestimating what humans were capable of achieving together. The revelation. The ISS Phantom glided silently through the void, its sleek silhouette barely discernible against the backdrop of stars. Inside, Lieutenant Commander Charles Phillips and his team were regrouping after their narrow escape from the Fangi outpost. The atmosphere in the cockpit was tense yet charged with a sense of urgency. They had gathered crucial intelligence, but the real work was just beginning. Analyzing the data. "Let's see what we've got," Phillips said, turning to Novak, who was already at her console, sifting through the data they had downloaded. The room was dimly lit, illuminated only by the soft glow of screens filled with information. "Here it is," she replied, her fingers dancing over the controls. "Blueprints for the weapon. It's called the Oblivion Engine. They're planning to deploy it within weeks." Phillips leaned closer to the screen, his heart racing as he absorbed the details. The Oblivion Engine was a massive structure designed to harness energy from nearby stars, capable of unleashing devastating blasts that could obliterate entire planets. "Can we sabotage it?" Lee asked, his voice laced with concern. "We need to get back to our fleet first," Phillips replied, his mind racing with possibilities. "We can't act without backup." Rallying the troops, as they plotted their course back to the rendezvous point, Phillips turned to his team. "We've faced impossible odds before, and we've come out on top. This mission is no different. We need to devise a plan to take down that weapon before it can be used against Earth." The team nodded in agreement, their expressions resolute. They knew what was at stake, not just for themselves, but for all of humanity. "Let's break it down," Novak suggested as she pulled up a holographic display of the weapon's schematics. "If we can infiltrate their main base again and disable the power source, we might be able to render it useless. That's risky, Kim cautioned. They'll be on high alert after our last incursion. Risky is our middle name, Phillips said with a smirk, trying to lighten the mood. We've trained for this. We know their weaknesses now. Preparing for battle. With determination fueling their resolve, they began preparing for their next mission. Each member of Bravo team checked their gear meticulously. Mag boots, low light visors, and suppressed rifles were all essential for what lay ahead. Let's make sure we're ready for anything, Phillips instructed as he distributed additional demo charges and tactical equipment. As they gathered around a central table, Phillips laid out their plan. We'll split into 2 teams again. Alpha will create diversions while Bravo infiltrates and disables the Oblivion engine's power core. What about extraction? Lee asked. We'll have a ship waiting at a nearby asteroid once we complete our mission, Phillips assured them. Now let's move. The approach. As they neared the Fangi base once more, tension filled the air like static electricity. The stars outside twinkled innocently, oblivious to the conflict brewing in their midst. Stealth mode engaged, Novak announced as she piloted the ship into position behind an asteroid cluster near the enemy outpost. Phillips felt a knot tighten in his stomach. This time they were going in with a clear objective and a fierce determination to succeed. Remember your roles, he reminded them as they prepared to disembark. Stay sharp and communicate clearly. The drop bay doors opened with a hiss, revealing the darkened surface of an asteroid littered with debris from previous battles, a stark reminder of what was at stake. Infiltration begins. As they landed and moved stealthily toward the base, Phillips led Bravo team through familiar service ducts that twisted like veins beneath the surface. The air was thick with anticipation. Every sound echoed ominously in their ears. Stay low, Phillips whispered as they emerged into a maintenance corridor leading toward the heart of the facility. Suddenly, they heard voices approaching, Fangi soldiers patrolling their territory. Phillips motioned for everyone to take cover behind some crates as 2 guards walked past, oblivious to their presence. Let's move, he urged once they were clear. They navigated through tight spaces until they reached a large chamber filled with machinery humming ominously. The power core for the Oblivion engine loomed ahead like a sleeping giant. Setting up charges, Phillips quickly assessed their surroundings and spotted several access points leading toward the core itself. Lee and Novak, you take point on disabling security systems while Kim and I set up charges around the core. As they worked quickly but quietly, Phillips felt his heart race with anticipation. They were so close now. Failure was not an option. Security systems are down, Lee announced triumphantly after moments that felt like hours. Excellent work. Now let's get these charges set, Phillips said as he began placing demo charges strategically around the power core. Just as they finished setting up their explosives, alarms blared throughout the facility once more. The Fangi had discovered something amiss. The counterattack. Time's up. We need to get out of here, Novak shouted as she activated her comms. Detonate on my mark, Phillips ordered as chaos erupted around them. Fangi soldiers poured into the chamber like angry hornets defending their nest. With blasters firing wildly and explosions rocking the facility around them, Phillips felt adrenaline surge through him once more. This was what they had trained for. Now, he shouted as he pressed the detonator button on his wrist device. The charges exploded in a series of deafening blasts that sent shockwaves rippling through the structure. Lights flickered violently before plunging everything into darkness momentarily, a perfect cover for their escape. Fighting their way out. Go, 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 Phillips yelled as they sprinted toward an emergency exit, while Fangi soldiers scrambled in confusion behind them. Lee covered their rear with precise fire, while Novak led them through narrow hallways filled with smoke and debris. Every second counted as more Fangi reinforcements rushed toward them. We're almost there, Kim shouted as they reached an exit leading outside into open space where their ship awaited them just beyond an asteroid field. But just then, a massive explosion rocked nearby. Debris rained down around them like deadly hailstones. "Keep moving," Phillips urged as he ducked under falling rubble, while firing back at pursuing Fanny soldiers who were gaining ground fast. Reaching safety, finally bursting through an exit into open space, their ship loomed ahead like a beacon of hope amidst chaos. "Get aboard," Novak yelled as she sprinted toward it. Lee covered her flank while Kim assisted Phillips, who was still firing back at enemies closing in fast. With one final push, everyone leaped aboard just as blaster bolts whizzed past them. Phillips slammed shut the hatch behind them while Novak powered up engines frantically. "But this isn't over yet," Phillips reminded them seriously. There would be more battles ahead. But today, they had proven themselves worthy adversaries who would not back down easily.